Here we are at another episode of Running Out the Clock. That's our signal. I'm Joseph Craven, as always, joined by the mighty triumvirate of Chandler, Mad Dog Roland.
That's bad.
B.A. Harkins.
B.A. like B.A. Baracus? Is that what you...
And Roe Face Hunter.
I'm the face.
So, we're here to talk about many things after week 2 is week through. And the first and foremost, most important thing to talk about here on Running Out the Clock, besides the fact that Rose seems to be recording in a restaurant as we speak, judging by the noise I hear in the background. Besides that, we got to talk about the Noles.
I'll have a chinchilla.
Excuse me, miss. Where's my margarita?
Excuse me, miss. This margarita's coming empty. Don't want to be grabbing this ice drops. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm recording a podcast. Keep going.
I don't understand any of these references.
It's becoming empty.
As we're talking about the Noles, though, I have to point out that in my other fantasy league, not the one with you guys, I'm changing my name to Patrick is my homeboy because he's my new quarterback and he's awesome.
Good.
I don't know who Patrick is.
Yeah, I don't know who Patrick is either, to be honest.
He's
Patrick Mahomes, quarterback for the Chiefs.
He's a golfer. He won the Masters this year.
Patrick.
They call him Fatrick. Talking about the Noles, guys. On the count of 3, I want all of you to make a noise that sums up your feelings about Florida State needing a late touchdown to take the lead against Samford. 1, 2, 3.
Hot dogs.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's talking about the Noles. Now to move on to the rest of this episode of Running Out the Clock. Week 2 gave us some drama. It gave us a few more completely meaningless games, but it also gave us, sorry, Keith, the end of a 31-year record. So there's a lot going on here. But before we get into that, I'm going to pass the baton. I'm going to pass the microphone here. And I want each of you to give me one person this week that you don't think is getting enough credit for something they accomplished. Doesn't have to be limited to the SEC. Doesn't even, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and go first, if that's okay, because I want to. I just want to give a little shout out to, and I got to make sure that I have her name correct. Yeah, I want to give a shout out to U.S. Open winner Naomi Osaka, who beat Serena Williams. And you guys are laughing, and I'm not really sure why you're laughing.
No,
I'm laughing because you're right.
I didn't think you were going in this direction.
Absolutely. I got to give a shout. We got to give credit to her. I know it's not even the correct sport, but I need to give credit to her because all the headlines have been about there's drama and controversy and so on and so forth, and no one wants to just go ahead and also say, "Hey, congratulations to the person who won."
And it's not just that she won; it's that she won so convincingly.
Yes,
I mean she beat her like badly.
Yep.
And you know
Absolutely.
what? I'm gonna say Naomi Osaka's name, and I'm not gonna say her opponent's name because we need to say Naomi's name because she was awesome.
She did great. And I hate it. And that's the whole reason I came up with this segment is because I hate it when the headlines don't give like credit to someone who accomplished something and the headlines focus on like the negative story. So anyway, I
legitimately thought that you were going to.
I got co-host 12-week-old Radar O'Reilly with me. Radar is starting to whine, so I apologize if she makes some noise. But Chandler, who is your pick for someone that deserves a little bit of credit this week that's not getting it otherwise?
I don't know if he's not getting it otherwise. I don't know if this counts because he technically is a Heisman frontrunner. But Bryce Love had an incredible game Saturday night against USC. USC is a team that kind of like Tennessee and Miami every year when they win their first game. It's always like, oh my gosh, they're back, they're amazing, they're going to win the national championship. And Bryce Love just had a very quiet. I think it was like 140 rushing yards and a touchdown, and just very quietly. And decisively did work. So, Bryce Love, take a bow.
Thank you, Chandler. Keith, how about you?
this game, the Florida and Kentucky game is going to focus a lot on the stuff that Florida did wrong. And, of course, Benny Snell, because he was an absolute monster that game. But UK quarterback Terry Wilson had a very, very, very good game.
He really did.
151 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, but he also had 105 yards rushing on 10 carries. He was I dare say that he beat the Gators more so than Benny Snell did.
I think you're right. I mean, without him, and we'll talk more about it in a minute, but I mean, without him, Snell
and the Jets
Snell gets all the attention, and he was the extra playmaker they badly needed on offense.
Yep.
Ro, how about you? Someone who deserves a little credit.
A little credit. That's not getting any credit. I'm going to step it down all the way down to Division III because the Millsaps Majors are 2-0 for the first time since 2013. They racked up over 600 total yards of offense this weekend against Westminster, who they have not beat since 2013. Can I get a holler? Let me get a holler at Millsaps, all right? Let me get a holler.
I'm not.
Calm down, Stephen A.
That is, I didn't realize that. Millsaps, of course, had. I mean, did they even have 2 wins last year, or did they just have the one? I don't remember, but
I'm too lazy to go look it up, fella.
Yeah, it doesn't matter enough. But all right, okay, good. Digging deep, and I respect it, Ro, even if I don't respect the team that you chose.
Well, I showed up to that game on Friday, and I was like, oh, man, I'll just go get some free beer and watch it. And they were already winning like 31-0 or something like that. I was like, well, screw it.
Nice.
Still more free beer, though.
Yeah, how did you get free beer out of it?
They got a beer garden, man. They got a beer garden there, and they give you free beer when you walk up. You got to pay for a ticket though first, and
Okay.
Which is like $1,200.
Okay, all right, that's right. I went to it a few years ago, and I distinctly remembered it not being free. But now I remember that's what it was. You have to buy a ticket to the garden. So
Yeah, but then it's like endless pictures or something. I don't know.
you're making it sound like when we used to hit up Wingstop on a Thursday night.
Yes.
Those were the days.
Miss those days.
Legendary.
We were the reason Wingstop stopped doing all you can eat and drink on a Thursday evening.
Yep.
I did the first time I went. It wasn't with you guys. It was some other friends, but I ate over 50.
You don't have other friends.
And we left because I stopped because everybody wanted to leave.
I think you and I went one time though, Chandler, and put down 40 apiece.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting.
And
Interesting.
the 40 apiece might have been before the dessert wings, so we threw down at least 6 dessert wings. So
That's true. Gotta love those teriyaki dessert wings. I introduced a coworker because my workplace had the cafeteria had teriyaki wings as a menu item last week, and I introduced the concept of dessert wings to a coworker of mine.
Woo.
So,
have you introduced them to halftime cake?
I haven't gotten. They're not ready. They're just not ready. I'm gonna be honest with you. They are not.
Few people are ready for halftime cake.
Exactly. The listeners of ROTC aren't even ready, so we're going to move on. Let's talk about, I don't know, football.
Nah.
Kentucky had
Why
not
would we?
beaten Florida in my lifetime for sure, almost all of our lifetimes within about a year or two.
Let's just consider the fact that had this streak gone for 4 more games, the Florida win streak could have run for president. Because it was born in the United States and it was 35 years of age or older.
I want to see Florida win streaks. Birth certificate. Thank you. Thank you.
It was definitely born in Kenya.
Dan Mullins is from Kenya.
Probably.
The 2 questions that really have to be asked about this is first and foremost, because I can't, harp on a segment where we praise somebody who did something right when then started off with what went wrong with Florida. So let's look at Kentucky. We already mentioned Benny Snell a little bit, and Keith gave a shout out to the quarterback for the Wildcats as well, who spread the offense out quite a bit. But
Begrudgingly.
He begrudgingly spread the offense out. Right?
Yep.
Is that what you said? I'm going to toss it over to Ro Hunter real quick. Ro, were you watching this game first and foremost?
I most certainly was, at least the second half.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure because I'm putting you on the spot because this was going to be a Chandler question and something has come up that has taken Chandler away for a moment. But what did Kentucky do right against the Gators?
Ran the football. My goodness, that's all it was. They couldn't stop them. And
I'm sorry, bro. Can you say that again? But can you add dangle football in there instead?
Ran the dango football.
Now, dangle
Paul,
football.
What else are you supposed to do?
Bear Bryant said that when you throw the ball, ain't but three things can happen, and two of them are bad. All right, so we got to run the ball.
Thank you, Paul.
Right? You call up Coach Kiffin, and you tell him it's time to run the ball. All right, roll Tide, Paul.
Hey,
So,
Ro, can you say it louder so that Dan Mull can hear you?
Ran the dango ball, Dan.
Thank you.
Ran the dango ball.
Ro, continue, please. What all did they do well? What worked well in that running game?
First of all, Benny Snell is a legitimate running back. That guy is incredible. I mean, offensive line looked way better than Florida's defensive line, unfortunately. They also had success from the quarterback, Wilson, who is incredibly athletic, too. I mean, that dude was, I think he threw for like 2 touchdowns, maybe. And then Benny Snell rushed 175 yards. And upset the Gators. I mean, in terms of what they did well, they managed the game very well. I don't know. My takeaway from this game, Kentucky's running game is pretty dangerous. They got it looked good. It's not like Florida is a bunch of scrubs. I mean, they looked – I was very shocked. I didn't see it coming, to be quite honest.
A scrub, of course, being a guy who thinks he's fly, but he's also known as a buster.
Exactly. This guy gets it.
The most important definition we could have thrown out at this moment in the
podcast. It's a huge win on the road against a really difficult place to play. I think, Kentucky's going to have a good year. I would say that Florida fans shouldn't be too sad about it. I know it's kind of a terrible game, but I was looking at Dan Mullen's first year. We lost to Georgia Tech very badly, and then we also lost to Houston as well. We bounced back. The next couple of years after that were very good, and I think we only had maybe one losing season after that. I don't think Florida fans should be too worried. It's going to be a bad year, but
I think in that losing season, still went to a bowl.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, transitions are transitions. They're going to be difficult to navigate at times. It sucks for Florida fans to see a transition also culminate very early on in the loss of a 31-game win streak against a particular opponent, and I think that's the most frustrating thing. But Chandler, you had mentioned the leading up to things. You had mentioned that you started to feel a little bit less confident in your pick of Florida. What did you see leading up that made you feel less confident, or was it just the movement of the Holy Spirit?
It was the movement of the Holy Spirit. I'm just kidding. I'm Presbyterian. We don't believe in the Holy Spirit. No, I believe in the Holy Spirit. If anybody from a Presbyterian credentials committee is listening to this, I believe in the Holy Spirit, and please hire me.
They're definitely coming for you, Chandler.
Yeah, please hire me because I need a job.
They're mounting up right now.
No, I mean, I think it's a lot of what Ro just said. I mean, I think the athleticism of Kentucky is really. I mean, they're very athletic. We all know who Benny Snell is, and it seems like Benny Snell finally has some help in the backfield. I remember I was watching the game with my dad, and we just kind of both commented that, man, like that quarterback apparently was a transfer from Oregon, and he looked like an Oregon quarterback.
Well, actually, he's a transfer from a team featured in season 3 of Last Chance U, Garden City, Kansas.
Oh,
well,
no, well that makes a lot of sense.
I haven't watched that yet.
Double not so fast. Double transfer.
Yeah,
Anyway.
They only show up. They only show up in one episode, and I don't think that he was even mentioned. So,
but East Mississippi's a real Last Chance U, Paul. No, I mean, I think that's what it is. I think it's just the athleticism of that running game, and I mean, look, Florida's a mess right now. We knew they were a mess offensively last year. They appear to still be a mess. I think I had a little bit higher hopes for Felipe Franks this year because again, as I've mentioned on this podcast and talking to Ro, you and Joseph as State fans often, Dan Mullen turned Chris Relf into a serviceable quarterback. So how terrible does Felipe Franks have to be that he can't be one. Yeah, I mean, I think, but again, it's one of those things that we talk about, people not getting the credit they deserve, and people want to talk about, Florida blew the streak or whatever. No, Kentucky just straight up beat them. And I said last week, I said I want to see this game not be a comedy of errors, and it wasn't a comedy of errors. I mean, Kentucky won the game, and I'm just so impressed with them for doing that. And they might be really good. I don't know.
It might be. Might just be. Might have some pieces there. They might also do the traditional Kentucky football thing and collapse halfway through the season. But
yeah, we still don't. We still don't really know anything.
As of now, they're 2-0.
This week didn't answer any questions, but I think in a lot of ways, it just shows that the Florida rebuild is going to be a little bit longer than people thought it might be.
So, on that note, then, Keith, being the guy that out of the podcast does keep up with Florida closest. And I want to emphasize, Chandler did just say, me and Roe as Mississippi State fans, I want to emphasize again that on this podcast, I'm a proud Belhaven Blazer. Nothing else. Thank you, sir. Keith, you keep up with Florida closely, so you know the strengths and weaknesses of the players a little bit better than the rest of us do. And I know that this was a frustrating game for you, but what did you, looking at this turnout and everything, what did you see as something that, what was Florida doing wrong that they couldn't answer Kentucky when Kentucky did things right?
As a former Florida Gator fan,
Keith's announcing his free agency.
No. I think he's announcing the program is dead, not that he's a free agent.
I announced my transfer from the program via Twitter 5 minutes after I got back to the house. Florida, I think it's been obvious for several years now. Florida has a culture problem. Mm-hmm. It was very obvious when McElwain was there. It was obvious in McElwain's last season, and it looks like that's going to take, I think, the longest. Florida has talent. It didn't help last night that Florida's best cover corner got hurt and is now out for the season on the third or fourth play of the game.
Hate that. Injuries are terrible.
Yeah. And I 100% do give props to Kentucky. I mean, you don't accidentally run for 303 yards. Kentucky's offensive line was very impressive to me. I did not expect them to control the line of scrimmage that well. Mm-hmm. That was eye-opening for sure. And I hope that the rest of the East paid attention to that, because Florida's defensive line is good. They still had CeCe Jefferson out, but one guy can't make a difference like that, especially when he's a pass rushing end. He's not like a run stop guy. So I don't know how much of a difference him being out made, but Florida's defense just couldn't tackle. It was crazy. I think Benny Snell's 175 yards, probably 100 of them came after contact.
Certainly seemed that way.
It's not great, Bob.
And
who's Bob? This is Paul we're talking to.
Changed my references up a lot.
As much as the execution wasn't there, Dan Mullen's game planning was very confusing. He seemed to establish something very specific in the Charleston Southern game.
His career.
Yeah. And then he came out and did something totally different against Kentucky. Franks was taking shots downfield early. They did not establish the run at all. I think Jordan Scarlett is your guy, and he had 4 touches the entire first half. And that wasn't just because he was not getting touches because he was ineffective. He still had the most carries outside of Franks in the entire first half. And for a young quarterback who has confidence issues, you want to establish the run and then go play action off of that. And they seem to skip step one, which did not make a whole lot of sense to me. It was the execution wasn't there on either side of the ball. The offensive line looks soft. I mean, like baby poop soft.
That's pretty soft.
Yeah, that's a particular kind of softness. I mean, you don't find that like when you're shopping for like bed sheets or something. They don't measure it in baby poop softness.
That could just be used to describe the entire Florida offensive line. It's just baby poop. It's stinky. It blows out. It gets all over the place. It's just disgusting. And then Mullen didn't help at all with his really erratic play calling again. I think I told Roe and Joseph this game, I think, encapsulated all of my fears about a Dan Mullen coach Florida team in one game.
I don't have any memory of you telling me that.
Maybe it was just Roe, and maybe the last 24 hours have been really hard on me.
I also believe you told me that via text message.
Maybe it was Chandler and Roe. Again, the last 24 hours have been very difficult.
I mean, look, Keith, you and I have talked about this before. There's this mentality among big programs, Florida being an example, Texas being an example. I think LSU falls in this category right now. That there's this attitude among programs that because they used to be good, they should still be good.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so it's like you kind of ignore that there's got to be a complete rebuilding of the program because honestly, look, the things that we're finding out about the Urban Meyer era right now at Florida, we've kind of seen the things that he's fought to keep hidden at Ohio State, and there, some things have kind of come out with player conduct, off the field stuff, this, that, and the other, that like you just don't really get the sense that really has been corrected. Maybe Muschamp and McElwain tried to deal with it as best they could, but there's a whole culture shift that has to happen, and Mullen's got to be the guy to come in and not just say, hey, we're going to run the offense differently, we're going to recruit a different kind of player, but like
he has to lay down the law.
We've got to change the program top to bottom, because that was what Saban did when he came to Alabama. Was Saban looked and said, look, the way you guys used to do it, I'm not going to do it that way. And Saban at the time may have been the only coach in the country that could say something like that because he already had a national championship to his credit. But you've got to have somebody that's going to walk in and look and say, we're not going to do things the way that they've been done for the last 10 years because clearly those things have not worked. We're going to do it my way or we're not going to do it.
Yeah. And also, like, you look at where Dan Mullen got his head coaching start at Mississippi State. He would not have been able to have any success if he were coming in right after Jackie Sherrill and all of the mess and the institutional issues that were going on then. Like that, the Sylvester Croom years, as painful as they would have been for Mississippi State fans to look back upon, were entirely necessary from a standpoint of what you're saying, taking everything down. I mean, one of the things that I'll always remember about Sylvester Croom is that he came in and kicked the starting running back off the team because of behavioral issues. And this was a guy who was a starter above future NFL player Jarius Norwood. But he had behavioral issues, and Croom said, that's not going to fly in my program, and actually removed him from the team. And say what you will about those years, because they were, of course, not phenomenal.
Not great, but not great.
Not great, Bob.
But necessary to lay a foundation that success can be built on. And Florida having more prestige, obviously, is exactly what you were saying. They're coming in with this mentality of it should be a quick turnaround, and maybe it's not as quick. Maybe it will take a little bit more time of stripping things down. Maybe not.
And I'm just saying, Joseph, you need to be real careful because Sylvester Croom, he did beat Alabama, and to say that a year that you beat Alabama is not great, that's disrespectful to the Tide.
Yeah,
right?
That's
Coach Saban's just not going to have it.
Yeah,
okay?
That's also definitely not what I said. So,
Well, that's what I heard. All right, so don't disrespect the Tide.
Hey, don't ask. Don't ask. All right.
That's
Stop
his
asking.
truth.
No, but I mean, yeah, there's a cultural thing, and I think that I think that Florida fans, Texas fans, we'll see what happens with LSU. We'll see what happens with USC. There's a handful of programs out there that we'll kind of see what happens as this thing goes a little further into some of these new coaches' careers. But I think Florida's maybe the most glaring example of this outside of Texas that I've seen in a long time, because it's like, well, Tebow was fun, so why can't we do that again? It's like, well.
Right. And I think Mullen has taken steps to like start that process. There are still lots of guys that were suspended this past Saturday because of like team violations. So at this point, sit them all year if it's egregious enough. I mean,
right.
But bottom line, if you play a game against anybody in the SEC and Felipe Franks is your only source of offense, you're in trouble. Not to say anything bad against Franks, but he's a young quarterback, and he's not a game-breaking quarterback.
No, and he's not going to be. He shouldn't be the guy that has 11 carries for 44 yards to lead your team in both categories.
Right.
Yeah. That can't happen.
When you're going 3-4 deep in terms of the running back position, your quarterback, who is not a natural scrambling quarterback, should not be the guy that leads you in carries and yardage. But all right, we do need to push along to the Clemson and Texas A&M game because we will have plenty more to discuss about the Florida Gators as time goes on. I'm sure it seems like that's becoming a lot more of an interesting storyline to pay attention to, of whether this was just a moment of Kentucky showing up, showing out, and Florida not being ready for what they were doing, or whether this is hinting at deeper issues. As we said earlier in this podcast also, it's only week 2. You can't really definitively say anything. So we'll keep an eye on it, of course, and we'll have a lot more to talk about moving on. But as for now, major props to the Kentucky Wildcats for ending a streak that started well before any of those players were born.
Time to start a new 31-season win streak.
And that's the mentality. That's just the mentality Florida has to have now. Has to. All right.
I'm just saying, in my son's lifetime, Florida has never beaten Kentucky.
Oh, man.
The most depressing thing I've ever heard.
All right.
It's only a 4-month span, man.
The Texas A&M football Aggies put up a much stronger fight against the Clemson football Tigers than maybe most of us predicted. It ended up being, again, a game that had some controversy to it. Was he in? Was he not? Or was the ball out? All of that stuff, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit here. But before we talk about specifics, I'm going to go in reverse order this time. So starting with Rode, then Keith, then Chandler, to mix things up from how we started the podcast. It was a 2-point victory for Clemson. Clemson, number 2 in the country. And the questions here are, like, first and foremost, this was, at Kyle Field. It's difficult to go on the road in week 2 because you're still getting your right form and everything. But, Ro, let me ask you this. Do you think that this matchup says more about Clemson or more about Texas A&M?
Both, I think. Both.
It says more about both?
Yes, absolutely. I know this is a very controversial statement I just made, but hear me out.
It was very Stephen A of you.
Yeah. Hear me out here.
Just wait. He's about to talk about his close personal friend, Jimbo Fisher.
My close
I just got off the phone with my close personal friend, Kelly Bryant, and he said it was the craziest environment he's ever seen.
That's
absolutely egregious.
Things of that nature.
That's an NCAA violation. All right, Rogue. Sorry.
No, I think Texas A&M kind of surprised a lot of people. They surprised me a little bit. They look a lot better than I thought they were going to be. But then that's also to say that, like, Clemson they looked a lot worse than I thought they were going to be. They certainly didn't look like the number 2 team in the country. I mean, I know Kyle Allen Field or whatever it's called is a great place to play, tough place to play or whatever. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I think ultimately, my takeaway from that place is going to be, or from that game rather. I would probably say that Texas A&M is still in the middle of the pack of the SC West. I don't think that they didn't show me enough to be like, oh, great. I mean, they ultimately lose to Clemson by a fumble, a controversial fumble, whatever. But I mean, they have home field advantage, all that kind of stuff. This is really kind of a second game for Clemson, the first game of the year. I'm still not convinced that Texas A&M is going to be great or anything. I'd like to see how they're going to do against the SC West, because the SC West, as we're seeing after this weekend, I think, what are we, like 6-1 against Power 5 teams, something like that. I'm not looking up the stat right now, but we'll just see. I mean, it's so hard to gauge how good Texas A&M is based upon Clemson. I know Clemson's really good, and they have a lot of good talent on the defensive side of the ball. Especially, I was really impressed with their defense, but has Texas A&M made a jump from what they were last year? I don't think so. I don't know. It's like you said a minute ago, it's too hard to tell in the second week of the season. And that's why I'm saying it kind of tells a little bit about both. Not a lot, but a little bit in terms of where the weakness is for Clemson. I mean, obviously, Texas A&M had a great offensive plan for the most of the game. I think they controlled time of possession for the most part, but I don't know. I'm gonna say that Texas A&M is gonna probably finish like 8-5 or so. That's about it. And I don't think that Clemson makes the college football playoffs. Yeah.
Keith, bad take.
Wow. Keith, do you agree with Rose's assessment here about the two teams?
Mostly. It's really unfortunate that Texas A&M got hammered by one of the dumbest rules in all of college football.
There's a hot take.
I mean, I don't know what the answer is to fix it, but
no, I actually said earlier today in a conversation with someone that I always thought that was a dumb way of handling that rule as well. So
yeah, maybe it's just loss of down, replay the down or something. I don't know, but to have something like that happen and cost you a potential win against a top 5 team it's really heartbreaking. But I mean, Texas A&M's defense showed up, I thought, in a big way. Certainly bigger than what I thought was going to happen. And of course, Kellen Mond had a career game against Clemson's defense. Maybe Texas A&M's better than we all thought, and Jimbo's got him geared up, or maybe Clemson's just not quite as good as what we thought either. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the big question.
But Texas A&M has to work on their running game. They've got to get that more consistent. They rushed 32 times for only 71 yards. That's not good at all.
No.
So they had to rely mostly on Kellen Mond, and he showed up in a big way. 430 yards passing for 3 touchdowns. Really good. Really solid game for him. But it'll be really interesting to watch both these teams play going forward.
Yeah. And that's what, if I had to weigh in on what this says, if this says more about Clemson or A&M, I would say this says a lot more to me about Kellen Mond than anything else, because I would have thought that Jimbo would go with Nick Starkel to go for this season, because I thought he would have fit Jimbo's style. So it does say more to me about Jimbo as a coach and his ability to say, okay, you know what, this other guy might fit my style more, but right now Kellen Mond is doing better, and to recognize who's doing better and for Kellen Mond to take advantage of it. But Chandler, what do you think about these two teams? Who does it say more about?
Okay, so let's go back to the long ago, to the ancient history of 2016.
I can't go that far back.
Yeah, it's a long.
Did Kentucky beat Florida that year?
No, as a matter of fact, they did not. But this year they did. So in 2016, the Clemson Tigers, led by one Deshaun Watson, went to Auburn, and they won. I believe the final score was 19-13. And everybody kind of looked at them and said, I don't know, Clemson's overrated. We know Auburn's not that good. Auburn, I think that year finished 8-5. Clemson's overrated. They're not that good. They struggled on the road with a not great team. But that Clemson team went on to beat Alabama for the national championship. So what does that say about I don't think it says anything about Clemson. I think it says
that Clemson is going to beat Texas in the national title game.
Ooh,
let's hope so. That'd be great.
That logic.
That'd be great. They already lost to Maryland, though.
Like we're following, just because Clemson beat Auburn, Alabama's biggest rival, and then went on to beat Alabama for time. So if Clemson beats A&M, they got to go with the historic rival of A&M, Texas, in the title game, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's
No, I think the question that answers for Clemson is that Dabo Swinney finally decided to vilify Trevor Lawrence, and no, I mean Kelly Bryant looks like their guy. He took him to a hard place to win and won. He played pretty well. I think it tells us a little bit about A&M too, because I think that my thought on A&M over the last few years has been their talent was better than their record had indicated, and for whatever reason, and look, I mean, Kevin Sumlin has started off 0-2 at Arizona. Like, maybe Kevin Sumlin's not that good of a coach.
Shocking.
And even as I sit here and I think, you know what, like I want to see a little bit more from Dabo before. I mean, not Dabo. I want to see a little bit more from Jimbo before I start kind of thinking that he's worth the $75 million or whatever. He's a better coach than Kevin Sumlin, because a lot of people are better coaches than Kevin Sumlin.
I had a friend text me and say, man, the Kevin Sumlin effect is already happening in Arizona. They look like they're in Kevin Sumlin mid-season form.
2 games.
They look like
crushed by Houston.
It was actually Gray Barnes, the same guy that made the joke about Manhattan being the Starkville of Kansas, that said that it is that this is currently Kevin Sumlin mid-season form.
Yeah, future guest Gray Barnes, I'm sure. But anyway, no. I mean, look, Texas A&M is more talented than they've shown in the last few years, and there are some offensive questions, there's some quarterback questions. But I will say that watching Kellen Mond and Kendrick Rogers just kind of go crazy Saturday night, it reminded me a little bit of Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans.
Oh my goodness!
You know, like that's a stout comparison. But I mean, good grief! Every time you looked up, Rogers was going up and taking a ball from. And I mean, Rogers is 6'3", 210. He's a big receiver. Yeah. So. I think maybe you could kind of look at Texas A&M and maybe readjust your prediction for them a little bit, because you think that, with the talent that they have, their schedule is still really hard. But like to see them beat, they're not beating Alabama, but to see them beat an Auburn or a Mississippi State or an LSU, all of a sudden is not that shocking at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still wary of them, and I still feel like a lot of this comes down to the fact that Clemson did not necessarily have outstanding offensive production as a team. Yeah. And a lot of that does come down to the fact that, Texas A&M's defense did well. Yeah. I don't want to take away from that, but you still have 2 quarterbacks come in, and neither of them can crack a 50 quarterback rating, according to the box score on ESPN.com. So while Bryant was efficient, 12 of 17 and a touchdown, that's not making very many mistakes, but that's also not a whole lot of downfield throws. And
look, I've got a huge man crush on Trevor Lawrence. I think he's the quarterback. I think he's the quarterback of the future for Clemson. I think he has got every I remember watching him in some recruiting videos and in some All-Star games and stuff in the U.S. Army All-American game. Like, he's legit. He's just not the steady hand and the steady leader that Kelly Bryant is yet.
Well, why don't you marry him then?
Because I'm already married, man. But don't think I wouldn't.
is important to point
No, I
out
wouldn't.
that
I'm just kidding.
A&M limited Clemson to less than 60 plays on offense,
Yeah.
Right.
while themselves had 72.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, A&M totally outplayed Clemson in this. The only ways that it didn't was bribing officials. Just kidding. I don't think there was a bribe. But yeah.
If you want to talk about bribing officials, let's go back to the Florida game.
I think it was. I think the fumble at the end zone was the right call on a stupid rule.
Yeah.
And the Florida field goal was no good.
Probably disagree on that one, but there was no real good angles to necessarily prove it.
The one person who had the angle called it.
The one person that had the angle was also deep in those Kentucky Wildcat pockets.
Blue pockets is what they
He
are.
and Calipari are good friends.
Yeah, there was there's not
actually-
necessarily a banner weekend for officiating in general.
Well, if you remember,
I don't remember.
I'm gonna mention his name on the podcast, but it's not for political reasons. Several years ago, the Fighting Colin Kaepernicks, the Nevada Wolfpack, played Boise State. It was a late night game, and Boise State went to kick a game-winning field goal, and it was exactly the same. It went above the top of the goalpost, and the ref underneath it called it no good. They showed it from several different angles. You couldn't really clearly see it, but it is the right application of the rule. But the controversy was Nevada's goalposts are like half the size of everybody else's. And so it was like if it had been a regular goalpost, then it might have been completely different. Anyway, I remember that, and I wanted to point out that I remember that. So do what you want to with that.
I'm glad you remembered.
I don't know how I did, but I did.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That is an interesting thing.
It's a dumb rule.
Yeah, the general rule is that, it's what the goalposts extend indefinitely into the heavens, into outer space.
But the ball has got to be clearly inside of it.
Exactly. So if it were extended, the question is whether or not the Florida kick would have hit it. And that's the issue, is that none of the cameras were in a good enough position to really give that good of a view. And the referee decided that it was not. I don't know. It looked better to me than it did, but there's no way of knowing for sure. So, oh well. Yeah. All right. The final big matchup of the weekend was a matchup in the SEC East that probably gives us less to talk about in general, just because of the way it ended up. But it was the two big teams in the SEC East. Georgia and South Carolina put up a competitive half of football, and then Georgia ran away with it in the second half. So now the question for everyone is, if we had to, again, this is week 2, so we don't know anything, but we're speculating like crazy because that's what we do on podcasts. Do you think that this means, and this is the question, but if you want to have a Row Hunter cop-out answer, that's fine, and say both. Does this make Georgia a clear-cut favorite in the East, more so than they were? Or does this simply mean that there are other East teams that maybe are in better positions than South Carolina to compete with Georgia this year? We did go Rowe, Keith, Chandler this last time, so this time we'll start Chandler, then go Keith, and then Rowe.
Georgia's going undefeated.
Okay. Simple answer. Nicely done. Nicely done. Keith, what do you think? I know you were a little bit critical of the Georgia defense in particular. For good reason. They did lose quite a bit of phenomenal players. But do you think that just after this week 2 shakedown in the East, do you think that Georgia is the best team in the East right now, clear cut, or do you think that somebody else is just better than South Carolina?
Yeah, I think that Georgia is definitely the clear cut favorite in the East, and they're a class above everybody else. It'll be really interesting to see what they do against an offense that can actually threaten their defense. But their defense looks to be like a very high event defense. They thrive off of turnovers and kind of field position and stuff like that. So, but until we're proven otherwise. They're the class of the East, and I just don't think that anybody else in the East is gonna challenge that.
Doesn't seem that way. Ro, what are you thinking though?
Hot take here. I think that Georgia is going back to the SEC championship. They're going undefeated. I totally agree with Chandler.
Yeah,
I think South Carolina is not that great, but I think that Georgia is way good. Jake Fromm. I picked Jake Fromm for the MVP, man. That's the star of the SEC in my book, and he played lights out. He played great.
he really did. He really did, and that's he deserves a little bit more credit for how efficient he was. I mean, he only had 3 incompletions. One of them was an interception, but he only had 3 incompletions.
Yeah,
just like his day slinging for the Hoko Bears.
Exactly. Houston County in the house, baby.
Houston County.
Look,
No, sorry. You, Keith, go ahead.
Georgia rushed the ball 52 times.
Yeah, they did. Ain't nothing changed from last year to this year.
No,
That was the personnel.
No.
It still seems weird to me that they're kind of keeping a little bit of a short leash on Jake Fromm a little bit. I mean, he attempted less than 20 passes. Georgia ran the ball a whole bunch. It'll be really interesting to see what happens whenever somebody stops their run game and they're forced to kind of rely on Fromm more.
Yeah, the SEC championship will be an interesting game.
Right. And that's it. Not a matchup before.
I don't think I haven't seen anything from anybody in the East that shows me that there's somebody in the East that can do that. Somebody could turn in the performance of a lifetime. One night. We've seen that happen. But I like a lot of people, I thought they might take a step back because of what they lost, but they clearly didn't.
I mean, their closest competition was South Carolina, and they handled business clearly. The Georgia-Florida game is always weird, so that could be a stumbling block for them, which seems like a weird thing to say after the disaster that we just watched.
But we said last week that the Kentucky and Florida game is always weird, and look how that one turned out. So
everything's weird and terrible.
Yeah, we never know. Yeah, before the season started.
Speaking of weird and terrible, Aaron Rodgers is riding off the field on an injury cart right now.
Oh, that's
really?
not good.
Oh,
that's not good. It's not good. And I'll say this, not to like toot my own horn, but I did make a comment that before the season started, this might be a year where maybe Georgia is not as strong of a team, but they take advantage of the fact that the East hasn't quite caught up, which then means maybe they establish themselves as, for years to come, an untouchable team. That'll obviously be to determine much farther from now, but it could just be that this is a chance right now for them to say, okay, maybe we're not quite as good. Maybe that defense still isn't quite as good and thrives more on big plays, but we're still going to take care of the division. So that's at least what it seems to be shaking down to be just a little bit. The Radar O'Reilly has been walking on my feet for the last second, so I'm trying to make sure that she's not getting into anything weird.
Good for her.
Good for her. She's now sitting under the desk, seems to be scared of something. Gotta love puppies. Gotta love puppies. An interesting week 2. Week 3 in particular has only 2 matchups that really stand out as being worth discussion. One of them leads into, it's going to have a lot that we will cover from week 2 that we didn't want to talk about as far as Ole Miss and their current state of their defense / state of their offense and whether or not this is the same story as last year all over again for Ole Miss. And we'll talk about that when we get to the Alabama and Ole Miss game. But there is one particular big non-conference matchup that is not worth discussing, and that's Vanderbilt and Notre Dame. The Commodores out there. But I do need to give credit to the Commodores. This is the weekly segment, of course, of what was Craven wrong about last week. And I made a flippant comment about not picking Vanderbilt to win because it's Vanderbilt. And that was kind of it. That's all I said. It was a flippant comment. And I was wrong to have said that. and I need to own up to my mistakes. But we'll run over all the predictions, what we were right on and wrong on in just a minute. But let's look at the two big matchups. LSU traveled to the Plains to face the Auburn War Tiger men, and Alabama
Eagles.
War Eagle men, Plains Eagle, and Alabama and Ole Miss. Wow, you got all the confusing mascot pairings playing this weekend that we're going to talk about. Alabama and Ole Miss as well. Ro, I'm going to turn it over to you. After a couple of weeks of seeing both LSU and Auburn in action, what do you think we're going to see in this particular matchup?
All right, so on the Auburn side of the football, right now they're 2-0, okay? They defeated Washington. We talked about that, 21-16. And then last week, really close game against Alabama State. It was 60-39. Great game. So far on the offense, we've kind of predicted it. Jared Stidham is a standout, as well as the wide receiver Ryan Davis and running back Jatarius Whitlow. On the defensive side of the ball, middle linebacker Deshaun Davis is poised to have a season, son. Kid's awesome. Next up, Auburn's picked to finish second in the SEC West race. They look to be off to a solid start after surviving a defensive slugfest with Washington. I foresee that the offense for the Auburn Tigers / War Eagle things. They were struggling against Washington. They bounced back pretty handily last week against Alabama State, against a great component like Alabama State. However, I think this week is going to be a little bit different. I see that Auburn's going to struggle mightily against LSU's defense, looking at what they've done thus far. As far as who I think is going to win or anything like that, I don't know. This one's really hard to tell. It's kind of a toss-up because Auburn, we knew we were going to be good, but LSU is surprisingly okay. Offense looks to be clicking with Joe Burrow. I'm really hoping for a good game. I'm going to lean towards Auburn on this one.
Sure.
I just think Auburn is a good, well-balanced team. I'm still weary of Ed Orgeron and LSU. I just am. It's just so hard to give him any kind of credit just yet. If they win this game though, I'll pick LSU a lot.
It'd be crazy.
Just because it would be so crazy. Yeah.
Shake everything up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my scouting report for him. That's why I'm just focusing kind of on the offensive numbers and stuff for Auburn. I think Auburn's going to come away in this one.
I do want to say something about the Auburn and Alabama State matchup, and that's really just that a friend of mine texted me in the middle of that game, and it was just a picture of a player from the Alabama State roster, and he was a punter named Anthony Craven, which of course is my brother's name.
Yeah, that's great.
No
been
way.
on the podcast before, and so it's super random because you just don't see the last name Craven that often. I feel like
is your brother moonlighting as the college punter?
Well, I approached him about it, and he very quickly responded with all caps text message that said "phony," and then a few minutes later said, "Okay, I admit it, it's me." So apparently he is. He has all his eligibility.
You are fake news.
He was fake news. It was fake news for sure. We have two teams in the LSU and Auburn that have, maybe not the most impressive offenses in the world, but defenses that are good enough to carry them through most matchups. So it's similar teams. Are we looking at another LSU Alabama national championship game style of game?
I hope not.
Where it's just nothing happens for forever and LSU can't cross the midfield line. I don't know. Keith, give me a quick assessment of when you look at these two defenses versus offenses of who you think will probably win out in the defense versus offense battle.
Well, this might be a very similar game to the high-scoring 2008 Auburn and Mississippi State game. And the final score was 3-2.
Oh no!
I don't know if it'll be that low, but this seems like one of those games where it was like maybe something like that, or like the LSU and Alabama like national championship game where it's like 7 total field goals or something like that. You know, these are 2 really good defenses and 2 offenses that are pretty questionable. LSU maybe way more so than Auburn, but it's going to be a lot of fun to watch these defenses kind of go head to head a little bit here.
It will be. I think it will be. I love a good defensive battle. I'm not necessarily saying that the Alabama LSU championship game or especially the 3-2 Mississippi State Auburn game were good defensive battles.
That 3-2 game was a horrible offensive game.
So
I think they could have played against Air and still been 3-2.
So I'm hoping it will be a good defensive battle, which are always fun to watch. Chandler, give us a quick assessment of what you see in these 2 teams as they go head to head this week.
We are 2 games into the season for LSU and Auburn, and Joe Burrow, the quarterback savior for LSU, has yet to eclipse 50% completion rate. Against Miami, maybe that's forgivable because people thought they were going to be good, but they're not. But they played Southeast Louisiana State, and he still only went 10 for 20. And I'm not totally sure where the skepticism for Auburn's offense comes from. Because Jarrett Stidham is an experienced quarterback. He's shown last year he can go up against the best and beat them. And it's at Auburn. Auburn's favored, I think, by 10.
That's right.
So I don't know, man. I still got to see more out of LSU's offense before I think this is much of a game.
Mm-hmm.
And even if LSU's defense holds Auburn to, 10 or 14 points or something, I just don't trust that offense. And I just don't trust them. I know their running backs have put up big numbers so far, but I got to see them do it against a good defense. And so I think that, Auburn's more experienced, they're more balanced on offense. Their defenses probably are equal. If not exactly equal, they're close. So I think Auburn wins, and maybe it's close, but I don't think LSU really seriously challenges in this game. But if they do, then I think at that point you can look and say, all right, LSU this year is going to put the rest of the SEC on notice, and maybe they're kind of right there in that second or third slot.
Right.
But like I said, I got to see more out of Joe Burrow before I can really count on them to do anything.
Exactly. I think the skepticism about Auburn's offense is that they couldn't move the ball with any level of consistent efficiency against Washington, which is fine. Washington has a great secondary. Washington does not necessarily have an amazing defensive line, and Auburn couldn't run the ball anywhere.
No.
And of course, Auburn is. And so they came out, they only threw the ball 14 times total against Alabama State. So they weren't trying to throw the ball around at all. They're trying to really get more comfortable, I think, in their blocking schemes and moving the ball like that. Ro?
Yeah, the other thing that kind of gives Auburn the edge, too, just looking it up, LSU has 10 players either out or suspended.
Did not realize that.
Yeah, there's 3 players out on suspension still, and there's 3 players out for leg injuries and things like that. And then there's other guys who are questionable on that list as well. And Auburn only has 3. So just by that number alone, I feel like that's kind of a big deal for a game like this. Who knows if these guys will be available when they hit the field on Saturday or whatever. But right now, I'm definitely leaning towards Auburn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And let's not ignore the fact either that Auburn did a much smarter. Oh, there it is. I just found it. I was looking for one statistic. Auburn played much smarter in that Jarrett Stidham only rushed the ball twice against Alabama State, as opposed to the fact that he rushed the ball like 15 times against Washington, which makes no sense.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a recipe for success.
No. And that's where I wonder if because Rhett Lashley was their offensive coordinator last year, and he's gone to SMU now. And I wonder if, and that's maybe another question I have about the Auburn offense, is that Rhett Lashley actually had a lot of responsibility. I guess he was responsible, there we go, for a lot of Auburn's success. When he took over more play calling responsibilities a couple seasons ago in that offense is when Auburn really started to get their act together, especially with Stidham in there. And with him gone, that's what I think some of the skepticism also comes from.
Yeah, but it's still, I mean,
all that.
At the end of the day, it's still Gus's offense.
Well, sure, but Gus handed a lot of responsibility over to Rhett.
Yeah.
And then Rhett left, so now it's back on Gus probably. I don't know what he trusts his current OC with, but we'll find out later on. The other big matchup in the SEC is, of course, the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Ole Miss Rebels. Alabama having another strong performance this past week, beating Arkansas State 57-7. And then Ole Miss having an incredible offensive performance where their offensive drives averaged about a minute and a half apiece, which is insane. But a lot of the issues we talked about with them reared their heads of sometimes like their offense acts too quickly for their defense to be rested. And the defense can't catch up. Of course, they were down at the half to Southern Illinois. And then before they finally blew them out 76-41, 76 freaking points against anyone is a lot of points. Good grief. So Chandler, what would it take for the Ole Miss Rebels to pull off another one of those recent year signature upsets against the Crimson Tide?
So there's a very clear path to an Ole Miss victory on Saturday. And that clear path is the clear path that the Alabama team bus would take if they were to go to Starkville instead of Oxford this weekend.
Bold. I respect it.
Look, this is like, okay, if you guys have ever played one of those, they're those mindless like Tapper hero games, where you level up your heroes until you get to a point that you can't get past, and then you prestige and you go back and you've got a little bit more power, but you can't quite make it as far.
Yeah, I've got one Endless Frontier 2. I play it a lot of my time.
Yeah, they're amazing games. I love those games. This is what Ole Miss is. Ole Miss got to the point where they could beat the Alabama boss a few years ago, and then they had to prestige, and they're not quite leveled up enough to do it again. I told you I had an incredible analogy.
You did. You told us you had a great metaphor, and that was a great metaphor. My goodness.
That was excellent. Well done.
Okay, so Ole Miss's offense. Ole Miss's offense is good enough to beat Alabama. Okay, like it is good enough to put up points and to beat them. The problem is Ole Miss's offense has to be flawless because their defense is that bad. The only thing I could really think when I was watching Ole Miss and Southern Illinois play was, oh my gosh, how bad is Texas Tech? Because Ole Miss stopped Texas Tech. Ole Miss did not stop Southern Illinois at all. I mean, it was like 4th and 4, and they're running. I mean, a perfect example was right at the end of the half. Ole Miss kind of gets them stopped. It's 4th down. Then they throw like a 70-yard touchdown pass because reasons. Their linebackers consistently looked out of place. There'd be times where Southern Illinois would just run to exactly where the linebackers weren't because they weren't on the field apparently. And you just can't make those kind of mistakes against Alabama.
No.
So if you've already done your "What was Craven wrong about" segment, I'm pretty sure segment is, I'm pretty sure Tua is going to struggle when they play a good defense. Maybe not struggle enough to lose, but I think that when they play somebody with some more team speed and a little more disciplined, a lot of the Manziel stuff that he does is not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
That defense is not going to be Ole Miss. And Ole Miss's only hope is that Jordan Ta'amu and that offense stays perfect, which they've been largely. I mean, some red zone issues, whatever, but they've largely been perfect in the first 2 games. But no, they're not going to be perfect, and they're, it's not going to be any fault of their own. They're going to probably play well. I don't know that I think it's going to be 66-3. I think Ole Miss is going to put up some more points than that, but I don't think they're going to be able to stop Alabama at all because that defense looked absolutely lost on Saturday. Although the only positive that you take away from it, the game, it was 38-35 at half in favor of Southern Illinois. The game ended 75-41.
Right.
So there was an adjustment there. Something happened. Something was different. But I think that Alabama's offense and Alabama's running game is going to be too good that whatever adjustments they made, it's not going to make. I mean, come on. Like, Southern Illinois would go 0-8 in the SEC and lose every game by an average of 1 billion points. So to say, hey, we made halftime adjustments and came back and beat Southern Illinois, that's pretty embarrassing.
And I think one of the things that the announcer said during the game, they pointed out that there were 3 top 25 FCS teams in Southern Illinois' conference, and Southern Illinois was not one of them. So I mean, they very well might be now. You know,
although there was an NFL running back that came out of Southern Illinois a few years ago. I can't remember who it is. He's not on the team anymore, obviously. But yeah, as much as I don't mean this as disrespect for the Tide. As much as I would love to see Ole Miss win, it's just, I mean, I can't see it. That Ole Miss does not have enough soul stones right now to get the damage boost that they need to win the game. So yeah, I think it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be a blowout.
Brandon Jacobs went to Auburn and then Southern Illinois.
That's not who I was thinking about.
Most notably.
It was another guy that was in Northern Illinois.
I got you.
He was like a little scat back like Sproles and those guys.
Most notably, Bart Scott is a Southern Illinois.
Can't wait.
Former player, and then of course the most notable Southern Illinois former Southern Illinois student. Is Macho Man Randy Savage himself.
Yep. The Macho Man.
Love that man. So Alabama had a tune-up game against Arkansas State, really. Tua went out there through 13 of 19 for 228 yards and 4 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts came in and had an efficient 7 of 9 for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns. I believe the news is saying that Jalen Hurts is pretty much agreed to take a red shirt if Tua is healthy and just go ahead and call this season done. If that leads to a transfer, who knows? We'll see when the time comes. But
he's got 2 more games to play in if that is in fact the plan.
Right. But that is the report right now, is that is his plan. So that being said, Alabama's offense does look like it's clicking. Najee Harris had 135 rushing yards and a touchdown against the Wolfpack, Arkansas State Wolfpack or something?
Red Wolves.
The dog
Red
pack.
Wolves. There you go. Thank you. What did you say, Keith?
They're the dog pack.
The dog pack. That's the accidental mascot that Keith and I came up with while watching football yesterday with each other. We actually said dog pack, and I think that would be the greatest mascot anyone could ever have. So let's go ahead, gentlemen, because I don't think we have too much to add into the preview of Ole Miss and Alabama necessarily. And how about we jump into some predictions? Y'all feel good about that?
Let's go for it.
Here we go. Quick recap of some of the week 2 predictions. Let's see. Alabama beat Arkansas State. We all got that one right. Colorado State beat Arkansas 34-27. None of us predicted that one right. Yeah. We all got Auburn correct. We all got Florida beating Kentucky wrong. We all got LSU beating Southeastern Louisiana. We all had Ole Miss beating Southern Illinois. We didn't expect it to be the way it was, but we all had it. We all did pick Mississippi State to beat Kansas State in just a classic sloppy second week on the road victory.
Let me tell you about an incredibly stupid thing that I did. I'm in a pick'em with some guys from high school, and it's for money, and there's a decent amount of money on the line for it. I made Mississippi State and Kansas State my number 8 most confident game, but I accidentally picked Kansas State instead of Mississippi State. So,
oops.
So you owe us money somehow. Because
I owe everybody money because of that. It was colossally stupid.
Yep. the big matchups in our predictions that really helped sway the point totals for all of us on the week were Chandler did pick South Carolina against the rest of us.
What an idiot.
Bro and I picked Nevada to beat Vandy. Oops. We all picked UAB, and Coastal Carolina wrecked UAB.
Oh, man.
Wrecked them. It was nasty. And we did pick Florida State, but we didn't expect Sanford to give Florida State everything. So all of us pretty even across the board here. Chandler, Rowe, and myself had 10 correct predictions. Keith, though, had 11 correct predictions, which means that Keith is currently in the lead in terms of the four of us with 24 correct predictions through 2 weeks.
What, do you think you're better than me?
He does. Look at him over there. Look at him over there. Rowe and Chandler both have 23, and I have 22 correct predictions on account of the fact that I am really bad at predicting things. Whew. All right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into some Week 3 predictions. Going across the SEC, predicting the Noles, and then we have one bonus, completely randomly chosen matchup to predict as well.
I don't know what it is yet. We don't even know what it is.
I got the ones, and let's just say that the theme for this week is everyone's favored by 1 billion points.
All right,
Everyone's favored by 1 billion.
It's a rough week for the SEC.
It's odd.
It is.
Just
It
put
is
that
most
way.
definitely an odd one. Keith, let's start things off with, if I can get my webpage in front of me to behave. Let's start things off with North Texas and Arkansas.
Let me find this game. Arkansas is a 8.5 point favorite.
Oof. I remember it was not too long ago that North Texas was considered to be the worst program in all of football. And now they're looking to pass that title along to Arkansas, it seems like. Chandler, what do you think of in this matchup? The Mean Green and the docile Razorbacks.
Give me the Razorbacks.
All right. Keith?
Sue it.
Rowe?
Give me that North Texas dog. Give me that Mean Green. Give him to me.
I'm going with the Mean Green as well. The last time Rowe and I teamed up on a game, we got it really wrong. So
that was not where I thought that sentence was going.
No. Yeah,
You
we
started
both
it, and it. Yeah,
both
you
picked
started
Nevada.
it and went somewhere completely different. Did I seriously pick Vanderbilt last week?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
What's
you picked
wrong with
Vandy,
you?
Keith picked Vandy, and then Rowe and I picked Nevada.
I must have
Yeah.
been hammered. I must have just been hammered.
Yeah, I think you
I
were.
had 27 BS.
So many BS.
So many BS.
And learn why.
We've got the Jim McElwain Derby, Colorado State at Florida. Colorado State coming off of a big old beatdown of the Razorbacks, looking to make it 2 in a row against SEC opponents. Keith,
By
what are
the
we looking at
way,
here? KJ Carter-Samuels leading the way.
This might be the dumbest line in the history of college football.
Hit me with it.
Florida is a 19-point favorite. So I don't know if they didn't watch the game Saturday, don't understand that Florida lost their best cover corner, and that KJ Carter-Samuels threw for like 1 million yards on Saturday.
Yeah, is he going to just go ahead and like take the title of leading passer for the season? I think so.
He's already
He's
got
going to take the title
1,100
of the
yards
best part of
passing.
Samuel's brother.
But yeah, so Florida's a 19-point favorite. That'll a 1,000,000% change by next
Interesting.
Saturday.
Yes, we are recording this on Sunday evening, so that will 1,000,000% change. I like the way you worded that. Chandler, what's your pick?
Florida and Florida easy.
All right. Keith?
I'm not Chandler Rowan confident in this one.
Because my last name's Roland, not Rowland.
Well, it's Rowan in Central Alabama, Paul.
My senior pastor did call me Rowland in my installation service.
I'm insulation service.
Yeah, I'm Presbyterian. We're weird.
Is that
So
what
when
you
you
do when
leave the church position, do they call it a removalization service?
No, but they should.
They should.
Be a great idea.
So Keith, are you going with Florida then?
I'm going with Florida, but yeah, I'm just gonna pick Florida and leave it at that.
Okay. Ro, how about you?
I guess I too am gonna painfully pick Florida, just like
Painfully is the best descriptor. It hurts.
no, I think Florida's gonna win. I think so.
I'm going to go Florida as well. Not to cover though.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I think that.
They may not even score 19 points.
If Colorado, I think Florida will score points on Colorado State pretty easily.
Colorado State is terrible.
But if Colorado State gets any sort of passing attack going any time at all for KJ Carter-Samuels, then he's going to throw for many, many yards, I think. Middle Tennessee,
Carter-Samuels.
Middle Tennessee and Georgia.
Let's see here. Georgia is a 31-point favorite.
Oh my
Double
god!
it.
They'll probably cover that.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Chandler.
Yeah, double that spread, and Georgia covers.
Yeah.
Georgia by 62.
Georgia by 70.
Vanderbilt blew out Middle Tennessee State.
I know. I will never trust Middle Tennessee State again. I did it one time on the podcast like 3 years ago. I trusted them, and they did it when I predicted them, and I felt great. I'm never doing it again. They betrayed me. Keith, Georgia.
Yeah, but they probably don't cover 62.
I don't know, dude.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know why that was so funny, but it was.
I think so. Georgia across the board sounds like for all of us here.
Yeah, Georgia. Yeah.
All right, we've got the Murray State Racers. Isn't that who they are? Are they the Racers? It seems like they are. The Murray State Racers visiting the future SEC East champions Kentucky Wildcats. What's the spread?
Nothing.
All right.
Life is meaningless.
So in this game that doesn't exist, Chandler, who you got?
You know what? I think that Kentucky is going to give a resounding no to racism and the Racers, and they're going to win. Maybe a little bit of a letdown from an emotional victory, but they're going to still win probably by a lot.
This is,
of
course,
racism is bad.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely their mascot. We apologize to Murray State for insinuating that you're all racist.
I apologize for nothing.
This is, of course, an interstate rivalry.
In fact,
Kentucky.
you owe me an apology. When are you going to apologize to me?
Oh!
All right, Chandler's been muted. All right, moving on. Keith, is this a Kentucky sweep across the prediction board for everyone?
Probably. Although it would be the most delicious meal ever if Kentucky somehow lost this game.
Not only that, it'd be the most Kentucky thing ever to somehow lose this game.
That is so true.
Bro, what do you think?
Give me Kentucky by like 40.
Deal. You got it. All right, let's jump down to ooh la la. Chandler, I believe you have to unmute yourself. I don't have that ability for whatever reason. I can mute you and I can't unmute you, which I always think is the strangest thing on Google Hangouts. But anyway, ooh la la, Louisiana Lafayette, now just known as Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns travel to Starkville to play the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Is there a line on this one, Keith?
State's a 32-point favorite.
All right, look, Chandler, what do you think?
I'm just saying, okay, on this last Saturday, all right, one of the universities of Louisiana came to Mississippi and beat the team from Mississippi. I'm, of course, talking to the Squawkum Hawkum Warhawks, beating SOUTHERN, Southern Mississippi, USM at the Rock.
Yep.
Oh!
But that's got nothing to do with this game.
No,
at
it
all.
doesn't.
And Mississippi State is going to win by a lot.
You were grandstanding right then. It was very impressive. Like the way you said it, the rhythm of what you're going with. I liked it.
I feel like we just had a throwback to the Drunk Steve segments from back in 2016.
May they rest in peace. Hopefully, we'll bring our friend Steve back on at some point because man, those are good. Those are good segments.
Dogs.
Bro,
Do I got to pick against my beloved Bulldogs? I could never. This is not the exception. Dogs by 1,000, Paul.
1,000.
thank you, Ro, for thank you also, Ro, for speaking with the microphone in your esophagus. That was very impressive.
This is how you do it, man.
Ro's coming in on it.
Surgically inserted into his throat.
Ro's coming in on
This is how we do
AM radio broadcast over here. So, I'm going MSU on this one as well. I don't think Ulala is in good shape right now. I don't know much about their program, though. I will admit. The Missouri Tigers and gunslinger Drew Lock travel to Purdue. Keith, what's the line?
The Fighting Locks are 7.5-point favorites.
7.5. Wow. Chandler?
I was thinking about something funny I could do here and just be like, Missouri's going to win. But then I thought about it, and Purdue's pretty exciting. And I think there are still questions about Missouri's defense. But I don't think Purdue wins, but I think the game, is probably pretty close. Drew Lock has yet to show that he can really be good against good teams, and Purdue's average-ish. So I think it's going to be interesting. But I think Missouri wins.
It is at Purdue.
So it is at Purdue. But
I really want to pick. I really want to pick Purdue. I really want to.
Okay, maybe this will help sway you. Maybe this will help sway you. So far, Purdue has lost 31-27 to Northwestern and 20-19 against Eastern Michigan.
Oof. Yeah, the thing is, I think Northwestern is pretty good, and they looked good against Northwestern, but I'm still going to go with Missouri.
Yeah, I was trying to say I don't think Purdue's very good this year.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Keith, what's your pick?
I'm going to go Mizzou. Not sure if they cover. It'll probably be a pretty close game, but I'm going Tigers.
Ro?
Tigers.
Yeah, Mizzou. Drew Loch Ness Monster, bro. Gonna eat it up. Gonna eat some Purdue Boilermakers up just like they were Purdue Peanuts. That's what's up.
Peanuts.
What's up? Purdue Peanuts. That was their original mascot.
I heard that the monster of Loch Ness loves boiled peanuts.
We're going to find out.
As long as they only cost $3.50. I said, God dang it, Loch Ness Monster. Stop selling them Girl Scout cookies.
What's happening to us? I'm picking Missouri too, and I think that they handle business. I don't think Purdue is very good. And I'm looking forward to this time next week when my What Was Craven Wrong About segment is when Purdue beats Missouri after I trashed them so hard.
By like 100.
Yeah.
No, because they've got this freshman that's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
He was incredible against Northwestern. And
He rushed for like 1 million yards.
it was incredible.
He's all they got, so we'll find out. All right, Marshall at South Carolina. Marshall at South Carolina. Keith, what is the spread?
South Carolina 12.5.
12.5. Interesting. Chandler?
That's a scary close number. 12.5. That's I still think South Carolina's pretty good. I think they bounce back in a big way. I think South Carolina wins.
Nice. Keith?
Agreed. South Carolina wins, and I think they win big here.
Ro? Oh my gosh, Ro disappeared.
Ro said that his computer died.
Oh no.
Rest in peace, Ro's computer.
Rest in peace, Ro's computer. What a sad day this is. Well, we'll come back to him whenever his computer lives on. But I'm going to pick South Carolina as I think this is their chance to say, okay, let's redeem ourselves because last week did not go well for us type of matchup. So South Carolina in a prove a point statement game. The University of Texas El Paso, formerly known as Texas Western, like 50 years ago, goes to Tennessee play against the Volunteers at 11 a.m. on the SEC Network. Woo! What is the spread here?
Tennessee is a 29.5-point favorite.
Man, how rough is UTEP that Tennessee is that big of a favorite? All right, Chandler, your thoughts?
Paul, I think this is the week that Jeremy Pruitt shows that he was the right man for the job. And I think that this Saturday we're going to hear Rocky Top, Paul, and it's going to be sweet. They're going to play it, and they're going to play it over and over again, Paul. I love that song. Coach Pruitt's the right man for the job. And Jarrett Guantanamo Bay, he's going to lock them down. He's going to win the job. He's going to win the game. I'm a Vol for life, Paul. And I just get so emotional thinking about it.
I was getting real worried where the Guantanamo Bay lock them down comments were going to go next.
I don't know.
They were going exactly where you thought it was.
So, Chandler, you're going with Tennessee?
Yeah, Tennessee's going to win.
Yeah. Keith?
Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go Vols as well. The fighting Skyhawk Warhawks of Louisiana Monroe travel to Texas A&M. I don't know. Is there a line there, Keith? Can go over?
Texas A&M, the 26-point favorite.
26 points. Anyone picking the Warhawks in this one, or are we all going Aggies?
Rock'em Squawk'em Warhawks, baby.
Okay.
So Chandler's picking Louisiana Monroe, and I refuse to listen to anything else he says. I've written it down as Louisiana Monroe. There's no question here. All right. So, yes. A&M across the board.
Yeah.
Aggies. Vanderbilt has to travel to South Bend, Indiana to go up against the Notre Dame Fighting Hunchbacks. What's the line there, Keith?
Notre Dame is a 15.5-point favorite.
Wow. Would have expected that to be more like a Tennessee UTEP line than anything else. Hey, Vandy's winning. Just win, baby. Just win. Chandler, you think that the Commodores have a chance?
Okay, do you remember what happened a few years ago when Vanderbilt started 2-0, and they looked really good doing it, and they were like, "Bring on Bama, we're ready for them." You remember what happened in week 3?
Yeah, Bama hit them like a meteor.
Yeah, so it's going to be like that. Maybe not quite as bad, but yeah, Notre Dame by a lot.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Irish as well. And to cover.
Yeah. I don't see any reason. Now, of course, last time I was absurdly confident going against Vanderbilt. They, beat Nevada. Obviously, Notre Dame, Nevada, not the same team. But I was really confident in Nevada. So, whoops. Yeah. Oh, well. All right, 2 more matchups, the ones we were discussing earlier. LSU and Auburn. What's the spread?
Auburn's a 10-point favorite at Jordan RR.
That is Abuburn, Abubrn. Did you say 10-point favorite?
Yeah.
Nice. We got a Boobern. Chandler, what's your pick?
I'm gonna go with Auburn for the reasons I've already said. I don't trust Joe Burrow yet. It's at Auburn, and so I think that's just going to be a little too much for LSU to overcome.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Auburn as well. I'm not sure if Auburn covers that, but Auburn does win.
I'm also going to go Auburn. I think that this exposes maybe some weaknesses in LSU's defense a little bit. That maybe LSU's defense isn't quite as good as they've seemed so far against Miami, and maybe, I think that's what I'm going with. I believe Rowe said he was leaning towards Auburn as well. We'll confirm this later on whenever we hear from Rowe again. May he rest in peace. But I'm going to put him down as a BUBRN pick for now.
A Booburn.
All right, finally in the SEC, Alabama and Ole Miss. What's the spread?
The big ticket. Alabama's a 19-point favorite.
19 points. I believe we've got Roe Hunter back.
I'm back.
Yay. Roe,
In one word, Auburn or LSU?
Go.
One word, Auburn.
All right.
That was like 7 words.
Oh yeah, I guess it's true.
Good grief, man. It was 4 words, including All right.
4 is like 7.
Okay, that's true. I can't argue with that. Ro, real quick, hit us with UTEP and Tennessee.
Oh man, gonna go with Tennessee on this one.
All right. Louisiana Monroe.
He missed the whole like fine bone color on that one.
He did. ULM and Texas A&M.
I'm gonna go Texas A&M here, Paul.
Vanderbilt and Notre Dame.
Give me the Irish. Give me the Fighting Irish.
Very nice. All right, and now you're up to speed, Ro. Thank you for jumping back in. Chandler, Alabama, 19-point favorites against your darling Rebels. Do you agree?
Paul, this is Bill from Northport, and I was just calling in to say, I still feel that the Rebels disrespected the Tide a few years ago when they won 2 years in a row, and I think that Coach Saban is going to have his boys ready to play, and Paul, if there's one thing that I love about the Alabama Crimson Tide, it's the way they run the ball. All right. And Paul,
right.
they're going to run the goddamn ball. All right. They're going to run it, and they're going to run it some more, and they're going to run it some more. All right. And if that Hawaiian boy throws the ball more than 15 times, then I think we got to fire Coach Saban, because the way you win football games is you run the ball, Paul. And so you call up Mike Loxley or Dabo Swinney or whoever it is that's calling the plays over there these days, and you tell him, Paul, run the ball. All right.
If there's one thing I love about the Crimson Tide, it's everything about the Crimson Tide.
It's everything about the Crimson Tide. All right. When my wife comes down in that houndstooth moo-moo, I tell you, Paul, I just punch the cat across the room every time, Paul.
Good.
All right.
Yeah, I'm about
Roll
to
Tide.
do again, man.
Roll Tide. Roll Tide. You can't mute the Tide, Paul.
All right, Keith.
You can't mute the
Who
Tide.
do you think in this matchup after between
I'll hang up and let you talk.
between the Land Sharks and I'm just muting Chandler for good measure. I know he's done, but just to be safe, I'm going to mute.
In the
battle between the Land Sharks and the Houndstooth Moo-Moos, who you got, Keith?
I think that the Alabama Red Elephants are going to beat the Ole Miss Beach Sharks. I don't really think that either defense stops the other offense, so I'm not sure that Bama covers, but give me that over-under set at like 100.
No. Alabama is going to crush us. It's going to be.
I love it.
It's not going to be last year, but it's going to be bad.
All right, Ro, how about you?
Yeah, definitely going with the Crimson Tide there. I think the Crimson Tide are going to give everything Ole Miss can handle in this.
Talking about the
I'm yawning. So yeah, that's how I feel about that game.
The last few times I've been extremely confident in Alabama to beat Ole Miss were the times that Ole Miss beat them back to back. So I'm going to pick the Rebels. Also, mostly because I'm behind in my predictions, and I need to pick something different than the rest of you.
Jason's going to further separate himself from the pack on this one.
I'm going to go with Ole Miss. There's nothing about this that makes it feel like Ole Miss has an advantage, and that is when they are most dangerous against Alabama, I think, when it just kind of seems like they shouldn't do it.
Except for the 2 times they did it where they had very clear advantages, but, whatever.
Sure, buddy. All right. Florida State goes to Syracuse. The criminals and the Orangemen, may their Orangemen rest in peace.
Free Shoes State University is gonna they're 2.5 point favorites, and that's it. That's hilarious.
Chandler,
I'm just saying, you don't go to the Carrier Dome and walk out with a win. All right. I think Dino Babers is still the coach at Syracuse. I could be wrong on that, but I think he is. And I'm just saying, last year, the Clemson Tigers went into the Carrier Dome. It was a Friday night. I watched it at a sports bar in Tuscaloosa, and the Clemson Tigers lost. And I think that the Florida State Seminoles are going to lose in the Carrier Dome.
Look at that.
Go
Look
Orange.
at that.
Go Orange.
Go Orange indeed. Keith, what do you think?
Give me Florida State.
All right, Road.
Noted Florida State fan, Keith Harkins.
We all know this about Keith. Ro, what you got?
Oh, man, I'm definitely going to be picking Florida State. Not because I think they're the best, but just to honor my main man, Mr. Burt Reynolds and his mustache. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to Burt
They're going to
Reynolds.
pour one out for Burt.
Do it for Burt.
Right now. Everybody take a shot of whatever it is you're drinking, even if it's water. Pour one out for the dirty dog.
I don't have anything nearby. I'm going to have to – you guys give me a minute. I'm going to go get a beverage just to pour some. I'm actually going with Syracuse as well. Syracuse likes to beat not just Clemson, but they also beat Miami last year, I think.
No, that was Pitt.
That was Pitt. Thank you. All right. But Syracuse beat Clemson last year. Something about Syracuse. I just feel like that.
Cuse in the house.
Cuse in the house. My brothers went to the 2003 Final Four. Was that the Carmelo Anthony? Yes. 2003 NCAA Final Four. Carmelo Anthony and Syracuse. They, along with that, that was some other good. Dwayne Wade and Marquette, for example. But they walked away from that. Most important thing they learned is that it really, really is like a straightforward, very commonplace thing for Syracuse fans to walk around just yelling, "Oh my God! Oh my God! Q's in the house! Oh my God!
Q's in the house!" Oh my
That's
God!
like completely legit. Completely legit. All right, here's the randomly chosen final game to predict. This game was chosen mostly because these are two surprising teams.
Two of them.
I looked
surprising.
I looked through them. I looked through the whole lineup and randomly went, you know what? This is the one we're going to go with. We're going to go with the nationally ranked Arizona State Fighting Herm Edwardses going up against who has proven to be a tricky opponent to their opponents so far, the San Diego State Kauai Aztecs. And this game is in Arlington, Texas, apparently, according to what ESPN was telling me earlier. I have not bothered to confirm that since then. But that's what they told me, and I find that weird. So, anyway,
Who is this?
Who is this? Who is this?
New phone. Who this?
This is Arizona State with one of the best wide receivers in the country, N'Keal Harris.
I was just making sure I was pulling up the right game.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. Going up against San Diego State, who is a 1-1. But is a tricky opponent. Yeah, that's all I got. Arizona State and San Diego State. Keith, is there a line you want to give us on this one?
Yeah. Arizona State is a 3-point favorite.
Ooh, 3 points. I didn't actually expect that to be a close line to pick. So cool. I feel better about this now. Chandler, flying blind on this prediction. What do you think?
I'm just saying, all right, there's one reason that you play. And that is you play to win the game.
The game, yes!
You play to win the game. All right? You play to win the game.
So you're picking San Diego
So
State?
who's your pick?
I thought that going into this season, things are going to work out well for Arizona with Kevin Sumlin, and things are going to be a train wreck at Arizona State with Herm Edwards. And it has proven to be the opposite.
Yeah.
And I think that on Saturday night, Herm Edwards and the Arizona State Sun Devils are going to play to win the game.
Yeah.
And they're going to win the game.
That's good. That's good. Arizona State's Chandler's pick. Keith.
I honestly had no idea who Chandler was picking there. I'm going to go Arizona State.
Ro?
I mean, yeah, I'm going to go with Kawhi Leonard.
Oh, the San Diego State Aztecs.
Yeah, just because I like Kawhi. That's it. That's all.
Mad respect for you. Mad respect to you for that pick. I'm going to stick with Arizona State, but I think this will be a very interesting one to watch.
Noted San Diego State football legend Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That game comes on 9:30 Eastern on CBS Sports Network, and you could bet I'll be tuning into that.
Yep.
I won't be.
Nope, not at all. Not even.
Little Pac-12 after dark, gentlemen.
Little Pac-12 after dark. There we go. We just put in all of our picks. I'm now realizing that I actually did pick Ole Miss to beat Alabama. Not really sure why I did that, but I wrote it down, so there it is.
It's a horrible choice.
Yeah, that was real bad, but I just wanted to be different. Hey, Chandler, if it's any consolation to you, keep in mind, no, it's not any consolation. I'm bad at predicting things.
I'm just saying, Joseph, believe in something, even if it costs you everything.
I was just about to make that quote.
Hey, look.
I didn't even mute Chandler. I ejected him from the conversation. That's going to wrap up running up the clock. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Yep.
Oh,
Bye,
God.
Los Felicios.
Let's just adios, Los Felicios.